Hello and welcome back to my Super Monkey Ball Marathon, and can you believe it, we're now in the final 3 games of the series. I'm fully aware that the marathon so far has been kind of all over the place and we've been tackling the games in a really weird order, and I'm here to report that the rest of the marathon is going to be exactly the same. So today we're taking a look at Super Monkey Ball 3D for the Nintendo 3DS, next time we'll be taking a look at Step and Roll for the Wii, and then we'll finally be taking a look at Banana Splits for the PlayStation Vita. It's taken me quite a while to get around to reviewing Step and Roll because my balance board broke, and it's taken me even longer to get around to Banana Splits because I'm gonna need to get my hands on a PlayStation TV. But enough about that, and let's get into this game. Firstly, I'd like to point out that there's currently no high quality footage of this game that exists on YouTube. I was going to use someone else's gameplay for this review like I did with Touch and Roll, but the highest quality footage available isn't that great and it's watermarked too, making it kind of unusable. So this led me to enter the world of 3DS Emulation, which is actually surprisingly easy to set up and get working. Maybe I should have done that for my review of Touch and Roll, but whatever I guess, what's done is done. So yeah, the actual game played on original hardware doesn't look quite this good, and if you spot any slowdown or frame dropping, that'll be the emulation rather than the game itself. I did play the entire game on my actual 3DS, so everything I say in this review will be based on that rather than the emulated version. The first thing that was immediately apparent when starting the game is that yet again, just like all of the previous portable games in the series, there's no story and it's just straight up about the gameplay. The closest thing we get to any indication of plot are these cutscenes that play at the start of each world, where a storybook opens and a paper version of II enters a portal to a new area. Why is going through these portals, or why is now made out of paper, is never stated, and it would have been nice to have some kind of explanation for this. But whatever, I'm kinda just used to the Super Monkey Ball games having no real story development at this point. On the surface, this game is pretty much the same as all of the other games in the series. There's a lack of any major gimmicks, like boss battles or jumping, but I think that makes this game a lot purer than a lot of the other more recent entries, which is nice. It's kinda like we're going back to basics. The main gimmicks offered here are mostly to showcase what the 3DS is capable of. So for one thing, it uses the 3D effect of the system fairly well. Although I wouldn't recommend playing it for very long with the 3D mode turned on, especially all the way, because it will probably melt your eyes. They really went in heavy on the depth effect here. You can also use the gyro function of the 3DS to play the game too. However, you can't use this in conjunction with the 3D effect because you'll be tilting the console all over the place, which makes the 3D effect not work because you have to be looking at the screen straight on. What I appreciate here though is that these visual and control gimmicks are completely optional. You can opt to just ignore the 3D completely and just use the circle pad to play it like any other Monkey Ball game. Super Monkey Ball 3D marks the first time that there's been a portable entry in the series that's been truly free from the shackles of restrictive hardware. With Super Monkey Ball Jr., we only had a D-pad to work with, and with Touch and Roll, we either had the D-pad or a touchscreen, and neither of those input methods are particularly good for a game all about precision-based movement. Now though, we finally have a handheld system with an actual analog stick, and it feels great. You can tilt the stage as softly or as harshly as you want, and we might finally have a handheld version of the game that's on par with the console versions in terms of controls. The only real issue with that though is that despite having great controls, the level design doesn't reflect this, and we find ourselves with the easiest game in the entire series, at least that I've covered so far. There's guardrails featured really heavily in every single world. Even the last one that you would think would be insanely difficult has them, and because of that, it's an absolute breeze. It almost feels like what they should have done is put these levels into Touch and Roll, because the controls being worse would have suited them more. And then you take all of the levels from Touch and Roll and put them into 3D, because then they would actually be a fair challenge with these proper analog controls. But no, it's the other way around, and it just doesn't quite work.
It's not even just that there's guardrails either. The levels themselves, even if the guardrails were taken out, offer practically no challenge. The paths are always really wide, you never have to do any difficult maneuvers with momentum building or bouncing by falling from a height, and every level kinda just feels like a flat linear obstacle course, where the obstacles are easily bypassed and placed extremely far apart. There's not a lot that separates the levels and makes them feel unique either. Sure, we have some gimmicks like the returning switches from Super Monkey Ball 2, the bumpers from practically every Super Monkey Ball game, as well as a new super bumper that sends you flying across the level. And we also have a new gimmick in the form of sludge that you get stuck in, and it reduces your speed drastically. But none of these are really used interestingly enough. Honestly, it's kinda bland, and the situation isn't helped by the fact that the game is incredibly short. Like seriously, it'll take you about an hour and a half or 2 hours tops to completely finish the main mode of the game. And while the original Super Monkey Ball games would probably take less time to finish than that if you mastered them, the amount of time required to get to the point where you've mastered them would give you much more game time and enjoyment in the way that you feel yourself improving than what you'll get here.
You know what else? There's an issue with this game that I literally don't think I've ever experienced with any other video game before. You literally can't delete your save data from the cartridge. I got my copy second hand and somebody already had a couple of high scores on there, and I wanted to start the game fresh for this review, but it turns out you can't. I read someone saying online that you could try turning the system off when it's in the middle of auto-saving to corrupt the data and therefore reformat it and start again. But seriously, I'm expected to do that just to start a new game?
Some of my criticisms from the previous games make the return here too. Like, yet again we find ourselves using the world structure from Touch and Roll and Banana Blitz, rather than the difficulty selection from the GameCube games. But like with Touch and Roll, I at least appreciate how once you've cleared a number of worlds, 4 different ones open up, allowing you to tackle them in a non-linear order if you want. We also have a credits minigame that's identical to one of the previous games, this time being a copy of the game from Super Monkey Ball 1. There's not even a new spin added to it like with Super Monkey Ball Jr. Here it's just exactly the same, and it drags on for a lot longer too, because more people worked on this game than the first one apparently.
But come on, enough with the negatives. There's got to be something good about this game, right?
Well yeah, it turns out that there's actually a lot I like about this game, and a fair amount that it adds to the game that's new. It also fixes certain issues I had with the previous games too, which is awesome. Like for example, how about the fact that the credits don't play after every single world and instead only appear once you've actually finished it? You know, like in a normal game. Thank God they finally stopped doing that. I have no idea why that was even a thing in the first place. It also features brand new music, rather than reusing and remixing tracks from the previous games like Banana Blitz did. Which, to be fair, is expected with this being a brand new game, but I can't take these things for granted after the abomination that is Banana Blitz. Even though the majority of the soundtrack is pretty good though, I will say that 3D does reuse the bonus music from Touch and Roll and Banana Blitz, so it's kinda weird how they chose to reuse this specific track when the rest of the game's soundtrack is completely original. I'm not sure who made that decision or why they made it, but there we go. The graphics in Super Monkey Ball 3D are actually really damn good, being on par with Banana Blitz for the Wii. And what makes this game really interesting visually is the fact that we actually have some brand new themes to roll through. We have the standard grassy jungle level, because obviously we do, but then we also have an Arabian style level with genies popping up around the place, a haunted level where monkey ghosts fly by every now and then, an Asian dragon theme with oriental bridges and lanterns hanging around, and loads more. This is the most interesting looking Monkey Ball game we've had for ages now, probably since Super Monkey Ball Adventure, honestly. So it definitely deserves a pat on the back for that. Now, despite the game being very short, I do really like that they added some replayability in a unique way for the series. There's this collectible system which kind of acts like getting achievements on the Xbox or trophies on the PlayStation. The way this works is that for doing specific things like not bumping into any barriers through a whole world or not collecting a single banana in a level, you'll unlock a collectible. Which is more so like a check mark on a list of things to do, more so than it is an actual collectible. So I'm not sure why the game refers to them as that. But even so, I really like this, and to be honest, I would like to see this return in a new Monkey Ball game. The issue with this though is that without looking up a guide online, you have no idea what you need to do to unlock these because the game itself doesn't tell you. Now, this is really weird because some of the things you have to do are really oddly specific. Like finishing a level after teetering on an edge for the majority of the time spent in a stage, or finishing every level of a world with the same time remaining on the clock. So I really feel like they should have just told you that you need to do this, rather than practically forcing you to look it up.
Another issue with this collectible system is that while it's nice basically ticking off a to-do list, you don't actually unlock anything for doing these objectives. No new characters, no new skins, no new minigames, or anything. It ends up making completing the game feel like a bit of an unrewarding and shallow experience.
As well as the objectives to complete, you also have to find a secret hidden banana in each world too, and getting these is probably the hardest thing to do in the game. Most of them are easy as pie, but there's two which actually require a small amount of skill. There's this one where you need to go up a ramp to gain speed and then hit into a bump in the floor to bounce you onto a ledge where the banana is. And then there's this one where you're in a half pipe and you need to gain enough speed to fly out of the pipe and grab the banana in the air. I would have appreciated the other bananas requiring this much skill too, but a lot of the time they're just placed in the middle of a level, being as easy to collect as a normal banana. Speaking of which, collecting all of the bananas in a world is actually somewhat incentivized here, because by doing so, you'll unlock a banana icon on the world select screen next to the world you just completed. Similarly, by finishing a world using motion controls, you'll get an M medal next to your chosen world too. So repeat playthroughs are sort of rewarded. But that's just the thing, it's only sort of. Yeah, sure, you can complete a checklist of objectives, get all the bananas, and finish the game with motion controls, but it doesn't actually do anything within the game besides ticking off a checklist and giving you a medal icon. You'd basically be doing all of that just to say that you've 100% completed Super Monkey Ball 3D, and to be honest, I don't think anyone would be that interested if you went out into the street celebrating that.
You know what else is a bit weird? By completing the first 7 worlds you unlock the secret 8th world, but then when you complete that you don't get a clear medal, banana collecting medal, or motion controlled medal. It's like they just forgot to program it in for the final level or something. So really, there's very little reason to actually complete this world, aside from getting the secret banana, which does actually count as a collectible.
But as we all know, the main game isn't all there is to Super Monkey Ball, and we still have to talk about the selection of minigames. In Super Monkey Ball 3D, there's a whopping 2 minigames to choose from. Yeah, you heard that right, 2. Even Super Monkey Ball Jr. had 3 minigames for God's sake. This officially makes 3D the game with the least amount of minigames, and to be honest, the least amount of content generally out of every Super Monkey Ball game, which really is kinda sad. The 2 minigames we have here are Monkey Race and Monkey Fight. But despite having the same names as the two classic Monkey Ball minigames which debuted in Super Monkey Ball 1, these are actually two completely new minigames.
So why did they name them after ones that already exist?
It's just confusing. They should have been called Monkey Kart and Monkey Smash or something. Monkey Race is a full-on kart racer, which might actually look good on the surface, but let me tell you, the controls here are awful. You can somewhat adapt to them over time, but even then you'll still find yourself struggling to make easy turns. The issue is that when you go into a drift to get a boost and turn corners, you turn far too harshly and then the boost blasts you straight into a wall because you overshot the turn. And then, if you don't drift to turn a corner, you hardly turn at all and just go straight into the wall ahead of you. It's like there's no middle ground with turning, and it makes basic movement feel horrendous. Add to that massively overpowered weapons which stun you for insane amounts of time, sending you from a high position all the way to last. And really awful physics, making it so bumping into enemies sends you flying and jumping off of ramps sends you falling to the ground like a ton of bricks, and you get a real bad time. Monkey Fight is basically a clunky Super Smash Bros. I mean, there's really nothing more to say. They even take the Smash Ball item and just turn it into a barrel, which when broken gives you a super ability that's basically a final smash. The thing is with this mode is that it just feels terrible. When you start a combo, you're locked into place and are completely defenseless. So there's always going to be a CPU opponent come up behind you and smack you. So it just ends up feeling like a chain of hitting an enemy, getting hit yourself, and then repeating. The jumping and general movement is stiff, the controls are far too complicated for what it is, and just like Monkey Race, it's a bad time. It's kind of annoying because the minigames here probably have the most amount of depth we've ever seen from a minigame in the series before. Monkey Race has several different Grand Prix to take part in, and by winning them you can unlock skins and karts. Meanwhile, Monkey Fight has lots of different modes, like here where a boat in the background will be shooting the stage randomly, giving you something else to look out for, and by coming first in each mode, you'll unlock skins for the characters. The catch here is that, number 1, the skins can only be used in the minigames and not the main mode of the game, which sucks. And number 2, the skins can only be used in the one particular minigame you unlocked them in, despite the same skins being available in both minigames, which basically just means you have to unlock them twice. What also massively sucks is that the character roster for the minigames includes Yan Yan and Doctor, who debuted in Banana Blitz, Jam, who debuted in Steppenroll, and Jet, who is brand new to this game. But for some stupid reason, you can't play as them in the main mode. Why in God's name didn't you unlock these 4 characters and the skins found in the minigames by doing the objectives and finding the bananas in the main game?
Something else to point out is that the skins you unlock in this game are actually the same ones that you unlock in Banana Blitz HD, which is a bit rubbish because I thought that they were original to that game, but it turns out they're just recycled from this. Banana Blitz and Banana Blitz HD just can't catch a break.
The thing is with the minigames featured here is that they're quite clearly rip-offs of Mario Kart and Super Smash Bros. Now, Super Monkey Ball 3D was a release title for the 3DS, so at the time this would have been alright for people who wanted to fill the void created by not having those titles on the 3DS yet. But now, we have Mario Kart 7 and Super Smash Bros. For 3DS, which have rendered the minigames here absolutely pointless. I mean, why play a knockoff when you can play the real deal? It used to be a situation where Super Monkey Ball had minigames that either weren't available anywhere else, or they gave them an original spin, or did them slightly differently to other versions in other games. With 3D though, that isn't the case. They chose to copy what Nintendo were doing, and obviously got annihilated because they clearly can't compete with that.
I'm honestly at a loss with how I feel about this game. For every one thing it does right, like having a list of objectives to complete in the main game, or having more in-depth minigames, it ruins it by doing something else wrong. Like the minigames being complete knockoffs of other games, and the list of objectives not actually unlocking anything. Another example is in the way that we finally have good controls in a portable Super Monkey Ball game, but the levels are far too basic and don't even require the good controls. The whole game is just a bit of a mess.
Despite me liking the core gameplay here and enjoying the small amount of time I spent completing the main game, I have to put Super Monkey Ball 3D in 7th place on my series ranking. It's a really difficult one to properly rank though, because it does have massive advantages over Junior and Touch and Roll. Having much better graphics, more interesting level theming, way better controls, and an objective system which adds replayability and gives you something else to aim for besides doing levels fast. But the poor level design, absolutely terrible minigames, lack of any unlockable stuff in the main game, the tiny amount of content and short length, really let it down. It's difficult though, because despite it being generally a worse game than Junior and Touch and Roll, I'm almost tempted to put it above those just because the controls make it much more playable and accessible. But I don't think I can justify doing that. I feel like 3D, Touch and Roll and Junior are so close together that all three of them are almost interchangeable, because they all have such drastically different strengths and weaknesses. But yeah, I feel like I'm doing the right thing putting it below those.
So that's Super Monkey Ball 3D. A bit of an annoying one to be honest, because we finally had a great opportunity for a good portable entry in the series, and they kinda just ruined it. Seemingly not putting a lot of effort into it, and creating a game that's far too basic, easy, and watered down compared to what the series once was. But hey, at least it's still better than Banana Blitz, so there's that I suppose. Next time in my Super Monkey Ball review marathon, we're going to be taking a look at Super Monkey Ball Step and Roll. Now, I'm fully aware that Super Monkey Ball 3D came out after this, but at this point I've kinda just embraced the fact that this marathon is all over the place. I'm still not entirely sure when I'll be able to make this video, because I still haven't replaced my Wii balance board, but as soon as I've done that, I'll get right to making it. For now, if you enjoyed the video, give it a like, subscribe to see more stuff like this coming soon, and leave a comment down below letting me know if you played Super Monkey Ball 3D and what you thought to it. And, until next time, bye!